top. And you know, and this is one of our wonderful qualities here in America, we're very competitive. We're very competitive, and we're not going to take a back seat while China and Europe build out these smart infrastructures and we're sitting on the sidelines. So 5G is very real. It's hyped, it's anticipated, but it's very real. Now, again, the ones who are most excited at this juncture, because you've got some people launching now this year and some others saying they're going to launch in 2009, they're the titans in the mobile technology space. But 5G is pretty simple to define verbally. It's the 5th generation of cellular or mobile technology, and it promises to bring supercharged wireless speeds, greater access to information and services, and connectivity to all of us that will be more efficient and effective. Now, according to those same titans in wireless, it will transform industries across every sector of the economy, and it will redefine 5G how we work, live, and grow. If realized, it will serve as a primary foundation for what we're going to talk about today, and that's smart cities. Because we're not going to put a bunch of wires all over our cities, because no one aesthetically wants that. And when you're talking about hurricanes and other man-made and natural disasters, nobody wants, that vulnerability in place. So that's not how our cities are going to be constructed or reconstructed or hardened or rewired. It's going to be primarily wireless. But the infrastructure needed to be primarily wireless and resilient, it's going to take a lot of small, what we call small cells and these attachments to our buildings, because the smartest of these technologies, it doesn't travel far. So in order to be able to have connectivity in our buildings, in order to have the lights and the transportation systems and all of the things that make cities, counties, and towns tick, you're going to rely on an infrastructure that's next generation. Now, when I was trying to think about what I would share with you today in my ever-shrinking 5 minutes, I thought about another South Carolina native, Dr. Marian Wright Aderman. She had a quote that we often appropriate, especially those in the ministry, and you'll know who I'm speaking about when I say this. You can't be what you can't see. Now, I evoke that quote today because while we're going to talk about smart cities, and apparently this is part 2 of the smart city conversation, no one really universally accepts and has a definition of what smart cities is. Is or are. Okay, I'm not sure how to conjugate that, but you know what I mean. Please don't tell my mom I just admitted that up front. And so that, to me, is the challenge and the opportunity. Because there's no universal definition, we have the opportunity through this forum and others like it to shape and define what a smart city is. But what we also know is traditionally, we have rarely had a seat at the table to define and shape what these cities used to be and too often are. So we're going to talk today, and I really want you to pay close attention to how technology, inclusion, and entrepreneurship and other opportunities will allow our cities to not only be smart and productive, but to be beneficial for us all. Because when we're talking about next generation, I'm sorry, the Southern came out of me. When we are talking about, I went straight there. When we are talking about connected cities and smart cities and all of these opportunities, you and I both know, all of us know, that there are too many in our cities that they don't really have a 4G LTE, soon to be 5G experience. Some of them, let's be honest, I don't care what the phone says when you pick it up. They basically have a 2G experience. Because if you have a plan that only allows for 200 minutes and 200 talk, you don't have a 4G LTE existence. So we really need to honestly demand a seat at the table, do our homework before we get in the room, and really discuss and define for ourselves what all of this looks like and what our communities need to move from a 2G, 3G, sometimes no G if you don't have a phone, future, from the past into a future. And so that's why discussions in this brain trust and more like it are so important. Because honestly, we're at different levels, at different places and times, when it comes to our expertise. Do not allow anyone to make you feel less than because of that. Because you know what your communities need. You know that leveraging technology will help you get there faster. That's the baseline. The rest of us can help fill in the blanks. And so what we all need to do is to not allow this part 2 to be part final. And to not be intimidated by what the future holds. We hold the key to the future. We know that technology has to be an integral part of it. So let's have a discussion today about how we can make the promise, how we can define what a smart city is, so that no one in a city includes counties, towns, hamlets, farms, dirt roads, paved roads, rock roads, no roads. It includes all of that. Because if it does not, then the divides that we see now, when we come back here in 10 years, there'll be water. So let's have a conversation now about how we can shore up, be more resilient, and deliver the promise that our communities so richly deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Clyburn, for those amazing words. You mentioned a quote that I think is really relevant, the idea that you can't become what you cannot see. And as we think about 5G, we really have to start imploring our imagination, because 5G is bringing more than speed, it's bringing mass innovation. We're talking self-driving cars, self-operating devices, as well as artificial intelligence. So with this 5G coming, the best way we can also prepare in doing that homework is to really start to shift to becoming creators of this type of technology and kind of moving away from the consumer. So I do want to bring up our panel to really speak to you on this topic of making sure we're not being left out of the digital divide. And so today's moderator is Rita Jo Lewis. She is an American diplomat currently serving as the Senior Fellow and Director of Congressional Affairs at the German Marshall Fund of the United States. It's the leading organization on the transatlantic relations. And without further ado, I welcome you, Rita Jo Lewis.
Well, first of all, we got a lot to get accomplished here, and we also are following. We have our mayors coming, and we want to bring the panel up immediately. As she said, I am at the German Marshall Fund of the United States, the leading organization for transatlantic relations. But I am joined here, and we thank our Congresswoman Clark for this opportunity, but I am joined by our speakers for this panel session. And so I want to bring up Deborah, Satya, and Iman. Will you please join me on the stage? Let's give them a round of applause. because we are moving fast and we want to get to our conversation as soon as we can, one of the things that is so exciting about being here in this particular session is because when the commissioner said, you know, what is smart cities exactly? So let me give you what Techopedia said. And Techopedia is like, you know, kind of for beginners. And then they say it's like for kids. But you know what? We're not kids here. But you know what? We're all beginning in this conversation. Some of us are a little bit more sophisticated than others. But this conversation right now is about transforming smart cities and how we can generate entrepreneurial opportunities during this transformation. And so Techopedia says a smart city is a designation given to a city that incorporates information and communication technologies, ICT, to enhance the quality and performance of urban services such as energy, transportation, and utilities in order to reduce resource compensation. So, you know, having these speakers with us, we had Latanza who was the Senior Vice President of Georgia Power Company, but you can imagine, big utility, the storm is coming, and she had to be there to help her citizenry in the state of Georgia and throughout the country. But we have here Deborah Becker, who will be I will ask start our first conversation from Honeywell. We have Iman Jefferson, who's the Assistant Manager at Urban Mobility and Maven at General Motors. And then we have Satya, who's the Group Vice President of Data and Cloud Production for Spectrum Enterprises, which is a unit of Charter Communications. And so to start us off right quick, I'm going to ask each of them to just give us just a little snippet of their background, because you see it in your folders, but also to talk about what does smart cities mean for you, especially in the work that you do in your particular companies. And we'll just go down the line, starting with Deborah and then Satya and then Iman.
So I'm Deborah Becker. I'm the Connected Buildings Leader for Honeywell, and I lead partnerships for Honeywell Building Technologies, which means really in terms of smart cities that we can't do it alone. It's a big ecosystem, and as you've heard already today, it means a lot of things to a lot of different people. So what it means to Honeywell is it means connecting all of the different things within a city. We can't have smart cities without smart buildings. So it's the buildings, it's the energy, it's the infrastructure, it's the citizens, smart healthcare, lots of different components coming together in a common platform, needing connectivity, as the Commissioner Claiborne suggested, right? And that's kind of it very quickly.
Okay,
all right.
Yes, Satya.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Satya Parimi, Group Vice President for Products for Spectrum Enterprise. Spectrum Enterprise is part of Charter Communications under the Spectrum brand. I have responsibility for creating products that target larger businesses, which includes local, state, and federal government. My area of interest in smart cities is my team actually develops and rolls out these products. Everything from looking at new technologies, all the wireless technologies that the Commissioner just talked about, looking at partners, because as Deborah mentioned, this solution cannot be delivered by one company at this point. So it's very important to find the partners, the ecosystem, and also make sure that we partner with the local communities. And again, as Representative Clark said, it's not just smart cities, it's smart communities, it's smart municipalities. The key here primarily is to find that local ecosystem wherein the technology that is readily available can be brought to the local communities to make sure we customize it and make sure it works for the local community, because the needs and asks of different communities vary based on what the needs locally are. The technology exists, and my job is to make sure we build the technology and then partner with the local communities to make sure we deliver on the promise of smart cities.
Iman?
My name is Iman Jefferson. I'm an Assistant Manager of Maven Urban Mobility at GM. So my role really is focused on developing strategic messaging around public relation opportunities on how Maven, which is GM's on-demand mobility car sharing app, is tied back to congestion and really talking about the sharing aspect of that. And so that ties into GM's larger vision for a world made better by zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion. So each of those pillars focuses on electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, and what we're doing in the sharing space. So we'll talk more about that during this panel.
Okay. Well, pull the,
A little
yes.
closer.
I have a quick question before, I have a couple questions before we turn it over to the audience. So I want you all to get your questions ready, because this is the moment. You have industry here, and we're going to be talking about entrepreneurial activities. And I know a number of you out here, a lot of you are in that space, and so now, as they say, so now is your time. You know, one of the things for the title of this particular session about 21st century opportunity and 21st century inclusion. So if we're transforming smart cities, and you know, it's a very attractive idea, how do we ensure that in this transformation process, everybody is included? So Deborah, why don't we start with Iman and then come this way?
I think part of it for us, at least from a GM perspective, is that we really are focused on community. And again, kind of tying back to that vision of 0, 0, 0, again, 0 crashes, 0 emissions, and 0 congestion. That makes a point for us that everyone has a stake in the future. Right now, we're doing a ton of infrastructure work, making sure we're doing conversations like this, making sure we're part of those communities that have the conversations being told. Another part of that, again, just from a Maven perspective, is that we are really focused on this new demand of millennials, right? So Maven for us really is focused on that space. Right now, we already know that those type of audiences and communities aren't really focused on making these significant purchases, right? Whether that's a house or a car. So for us, we're finding ways to just have that conversation honestly and candidly, and making sure they still have access to making sure they can have cars to get to where they want to go. So I think that's a big part of it right now for us.
Okay. What does it mean to you, Satya?
Yeah, I think for us, I have responsibility for developing products, and great products come from diversity of thought and people who work on developing them. So it starts from all the way from the beginning, from ideation perspective. I mean, at Charter, over 40% of our employees are people of color, and that diversity helps in creating the right technologies, the right solutions. And as I mentioned before, you can get a piece of technology created in the lab, but the success of the technology really depends on how it's used in the market. And that's where we really work with the local communities to see how to effectively deliver on the services. So we engage with both from a partnership perspective and also from a delivery of service perspective locally in the communities. And be it Kansas City or Dallas or Austin or LA, different needs, different local people take our technology and make it work for them. And I think that automatically from the ideation through development, delivery of the service, there is diversity involved all along. And I think that's what makes something successful long term.
Deborah?
I think one of the things that we do similar to Satya is we work with the end customer and understand what the needs are, and my role is building up that ecosystem. We can't do it alone. We have to partner, and we partner with the best. If it's small startups or if it's large companies similar to Honeywell, we bring them together to provide that additional value to the customer, working directly to their needs. My colleague here, Felicia McDade, who runs our South business, just recently had a subcontractor fair in Miami-Dade County. And that was really because we have a commitment at Honeywell to supplier diversity. So it was a bit of a fair, a bit of training, and said, hey, we're looking for all of these roles and resources because we have these opportunities in the county with both public and private opportunities. And we'd love for you to come out and pre-register. If you've got qualifications and work experience, what have you, please get into our database, right? Because it's not just that little piece in, not that it's little, but Miami-Dade, but once you get into our system as a qualified minority, women-owned, small, disadvantaged enterprise, we want to use you like crazy. So you'll be exposed to many more opportunities by getting into the system.
And you know, it can be a very daunting task to try to do business with major companies. Can you give some tips about how you're using other inclusive measures, especially around the use of smart cities and bringing in, what types of companies are you looking at? Can I ask all of you that?
Okay.
Or looking for?
Go ahead.
I think part of it also for us is that we have an ERG called G-Man, and so that's a way for us to make sure that we are already using our existing employees to advocate. We do a ton of outreach with various partnerships through colleges and universities, as well as partnering with third-party organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as with all the services we deliver today, I think whenever we look for partners or vendors to work with, we are looking for diversity both from experience, expertise, and also regionalization as well. So as you look at opportunities, and I'll make a small plug for Spectrum and Charter Communications.
Absolutely.
We are hiring for smart cities. There are open positions. You can go on our websites. You can go apply. We're also engaging in building an ecosystem to deliver these services. Again, from a technology perspective, we can cook something up in the lab, and I have a small set of partners I can work with. But when I have to go deliver something in LA, I need local partners for that. So we engage with our local teams there. Same thing in the city, in New York City. If you have to deliver something, we engage with local partners. So yes, there's entrepreneurship opportunity, but we want some of those entrepreneurs in charter as well. So we are hiring people for smart cities. We just posted a number of roles recently and more to come over the next few months. And as we start talking more about the partnerships and the ecosystem that we're going to roll out, we look for startups, companies in the technology space, companies in the service delivery space to partner with us to bring these to life as we work with a lot of the local cities and municipalities.
So you heard it here first. He has jobs, and he's also talking about startups. Give us your email. Give us your address at Spectrum, your website address.
Absolutely.
What is that?
It's jobs.spectrum.com.
All right, you heard it here first. What's yours at General Motors? What's yours at General Motors?
We have some things happening
We'll take them
at James as
first.
well.
Yes, there you go.
Honeywell.com.
All right, honeywell.com. Okay, you want to respond to that?
I want to take that question a little bit differently and share one of my experiences working in the EU as you were talking about and being better than Europe, right? We had the opportunity as Honeywell to participate with a Brainport Smart District in Helmond in the Netherlands. And it was coming together with local municipalities, with technology companies, with startups, with students, with technology, University of Eindhoven, in basically a think tank. They called it a syntegration exercise. Everybody got together, committed a week to volunteer their time to say, what do we want our smart city to look like? What is good in 2020, and how is it going to be good still 50 years later? How are we going to build a sustainable community, net zero, that provides more inclusion, that drives greater change, that zero waste, so forth. So it was a fantastic experience from our perspective, because we got to network, we got to share our technology, but we also got to learn a lot. And I think from entrepreneurs in the room, it's a great way to get involved and help shape visions and communities going forward.
Okay, one last question then. If we are ready for questions, please, who has the mic for them? I'm going to, while we're doing that, I'm going to ask one last question of them. How can institutions that are already embedded in the community encourage people to innovate and transform their homes and lives into smart cities and smart cities communities?
I would say get connected yourself. I mean, what we do is all about connected buildings, connected cities, connected infrastructure, and getting yourself connected. Get it into those industry organizations within your particular segment of expertise. Find a buddy that can help support you. Be persistent as heck. And then also work with industry events like Felicia had in Florida. Go to these subcontractor fairs, go to learning environments, and get involved with the cities as well.
What about you at Spectrum?
Yeah, I think it starts with, again, as Deborah mentioned, it's connectivity. I think the key is making sure everybody is connected with the right kind of connectivity, the right level of connectivity. And once that's available, I think that's opens up a lot of opportunity. And I think a lot of smart city activity and opportunities come from the city, because end of the day, smart city, as was defined, a lot of the services you get out of smart cities, be it smart lighting where lights turn on and off at the right time, smart parking where it's easy to find parking, smart trash pickup, smart water monitoring. All of these services are going to be delivered by the city. So as a service provider, as a technology provider, we're going to enable the city to deliver the service, but the service itself is going to be owned and delivered by the city. So working with the city and the local communities, I think, would open yourself up for a lot of opportunity to participate in this new opportunity.
And what about at General Motors?
I would also add that sharing is a big component. We really believe that sharing is going to be a solution to make cities more livable. When you think about sharing from the perspective of cars sitting idle 95% of the time, there's different ways for us to get around the city that will help reduce congestion. We also know that for every car that's used in a car sharing aspect, that's 8 to 10 cars off the road. So you're getting back time to do what's most important to you and really starting to understand how that industry and space works.
Let's open it up for question. Who wants to go first? Yes, right here, sir. Will you say your name and question, please? And we're going to be brief here, so to get through a lot of questions.
You before you move, my question is, how do you make sure you talk about inclusion? It seems like one of the friendly fire things that's happening in our cities is that we're leaving a lot of senior citizens behind, you know. And so, how do you make sure that you don't polarize the generations?
Who wants to take that first?
I think there's aspects of
Deborah?
smart cities like connected healthcare that can help, and providing at-home devices that can feed back things in terms of the status. We make devices that are like patient tablets that you can bring home and report back to the doctor. You can have wayfinding and movements tracking. This is more for people that need higher levels of care, but keeping them connected and automatically sending up information back to the healthcare facilities was one piece of that. Also, transportation, right? Connected smart mobility is a big part. Yeah.
Thanks, Deb. Yeah. That's a huge part of what we're doing in the car sharing space, is finding ways to have transportation options so people can get to their appointments in a more quicker and efficient manner. So that's a big way for us at GM we're really working on.
Satya, any suggestions?
Yeah, I think services, of course, any smart city services will be available for people across the spectrum, age, and race, diversity, all aspects of it. But I think the key is digital education is the other aspect that's very important, because to avail yourself of these smart cities, there has to be some digital literacy that's really required. And I mean, at Spectrum, we have initiatives underway right now for digital education grants that we provide to nonprofits that are working locally to provide digital literacy, digital education, and also for low-income families and senior citizens. We have a Spectrum Internet Assist program to make sure you have the right kind of internet capability as well. So I think making sure you can connect and you know how to use the technology, I think, is absolutely critical. And we need to make sure the seniors participate in the benefits of the smart city.
Next question, right here, and then we'll go here. We'll take two, here and here.
Great. Good afternoon. My name is Colleen Sella. Thank you all for being here. When I think of smart cities, I think a lot of the data collection you're going to be taking from the consumer or the constituent.
Yes.
And I am wondering what you all are currently doing, or the frameworks you're thinking when it comes to data protection.
Excellent question. Who wants to go first?
Can I
Satya.
geek out first before other people do? So, excellent question, by the way.
Excellent.
And there's a lot of information that the city owns today on all of us. And smart cities basically put sensors on everything. That means they're getting a lot more information. It's absolutely critical that the privacy and privacy of the citizens, security of the information is very critical. A lot of the frameworks we're looking at involves open data initiatives. There's a lot of work going on in this space, both from a standardization perspective, and some cities like New York City have a open data, point of view that a lot of other cities are accepting as well. I think, look, there's the other aspect to it. There are ways to monetize some of this information too, but it can only be done anonymously. For example, Apple's done some of this work. They've anonymously collected information with your smartwatches, right? When you're having a heart attack. I mean, there's a new Apple 4 that came out. It has functionality in it for doing EKG, right? So when you collect data, the responsibility around how to manage the data and how it's used becomes very, very, very important. And as a service provider and an enabler of technology, we generate the data, but the city owns that data, right? So it's very important for local communities to get to some agreement on how to leverage and use the data. And I think there are great frameworks out there on open data initiatives, because it's not only about securing it and making sure there is privacy. If you want to share it, who gets access to that data, right? Because that data is very valuable and it can be monetized. So there's a lot of work going on in this space, but it's absolutely, for smart cities to be successful, there has to be an answer for this.
Let's get another question here.
Thank you very much. My name is Nicholas Okoye. Who takes the lead on determining which city is going to become a smart city? Is it the leaders in the municipalities, or is it the private sector that comes to the city and says, unsolicited, you need to do this because this is where technology is going? So I want to understand that. And then also, which city, in your experience, has achieved total smart city compliance, if you will, so that if somebody wants to study what a smart city looks like, we would be able to go there.
Who has some recommendations?
I would love that. I would say at Honeywell, we can come to the city and say, here's what you need to do. But I think it's really the city coming forward and saying, it's a collaborative piece where we can certainly help inform and would love to host innovation sessions with city leaders. But I think it's really coming up from the city and the community itself. The one example is Washington, D.C., because Washington here was the very first Lead for Cities certification. I think it was August of last year they received that.
Award.
And Lead for Cities is about creating a sustainable city with renewable resources and providing inclusion for all. And I think it helps attract talent, right? Amazon headquarters is still, Washington's still in the mix here?
Still in the
for
mix.
the new headquarters.
Still in the mix.
Not only that providing a sort of the petri dish for technology, but also bringing entrepreneurs and top talent to the city.
Any other places for recommendations as to best practices?
I would say also for us from a Maven perspective has been pretty helpful in making sure that we're at least getting the learnings to see how Smart City works. We partnered with them earlier this year to bring Maven Gig, which allows people who want to be part of the gig economy to have cars and access through Maven to use at a weekly rate. And so partnering with that city, we also are able to deploy electric vehicles. So just a sense of having the connectivity, finding ways to also promote sharing, and then also working around the emissions piece from an electric perspective.
Any
Yeah,
recommendations?
there's a lot of very exciting work going on across the U.S. and internationally as well. If you want the most advanced of those, you have to go, unfortunately, international for now, but we're catching up pretty quickly. Barcelona is, Hong Kong is another one, Singapore. In the U.S., Kansas City, they've done the downtown corridor. They just put out an RFP for a complete solution that we actually participated in. Nevada, Las Vegas, Nevada is another one that's doing a lot of work. If we can talk afterwards, if you want just lighting, there's San Diego. For connected cars, there's Columbus. I mean, there's different point solutions happening. But what we're really hopeful for is we move past one service. Like there's smart trash cans all across New York City, but not enough lighting solutions, smart lighting solutions or parking solutions, right? So the smart city of the future is where you want all these services to talk to one another, and that makes the city smart versus like one solution for one problem.
All right. Time for one more question. Who has the last burning question? All right, right here. We'll take her too.
What other roles are involved instead of IT roles that would make this possible?
Absolutely. And one more question. This is the last question right here, too. We're going to wrap these two. Right here. You.
My name is Colleen Watson, and my profession before I retired was in telecommunications. So as a senior, I do embrace it, but most of my colleagues don't. And I remember attending one of these workshops in education years ago when someone asked, panelists said that we're going to be left behind in the digital divide. So one young lady got up and she said, well, I can't afford a PC in my home for my children. I'm a single mother. And I think I'm at the point now that I'm retired on my budget, and this is not going to be affordable to go from 2G to 5G and all this new thing. Are there any plans to help seniors?
Good question. Good question.
Are there
Excellent
any
question.
plans to
That's
help
right.
seniors?
Seniors, young people,
Yeah.
disadvantaged communities,
Yeah.
the whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's my question.
Okay.
I'm intimidated.
That's right. And we don't want you to be intimidated. That's why we got these experts up here. One last question or question. Anybody before they answer? Okay. Let's just do a quick round here. We'll start at Iman. We'll start with Satya since Iman keeps starting. Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
All
Got two to
right.
respond to right here.
On the
Yeah.
first question, and then the opportunities, the technology side on the creation of the service is IT, but past that, to deliver the service, everything from installing sensors to providing care, customer support for the service, monitoring of results and reacting to it. So when you have a command center where you can look at traffic patterns, and then all of these are non-technology IT roles. There are marketing roles, right? So opportunity exists across the entire spectrum That's one of the unique things with the service is because it's not a technology service end of the day. A smart city service is still a city service. So a big chunk of that, if you look at the value chain of the service, a lot of that is going to be non-IT.
Deborah? We'll let
Yeah,
you
I was
go
just
next.
going to quick add to that. Also engagement, working with the community and getting them engaged and educating them about the new services and how to work with them.
Iman?
And then also just from an operations perspective, at least, you know, from a GM side, that we have a lot of things happening in the facilities within our plants where we still need that workforce to grow. So outside of just standard IT, it's endless opportunities. And I would also say that a lot of the workforce is going to have to be iterative. You know, we have people who do a bit of everything now because this is an ongoing evolution. So for us, it's a bit of a mix.
And so what general advice, we're going to ask the panelists, would you give to the individuals in this room who are seeking entrepreneurial opportunities with your companies or different organizations? And we also want to continue to answer that question about seniors and not being intimidated too. So.
I think the advice I gave earlier, it's come to our fairs that we have, get registered in our database so we know about you and can provide opportunities to you, learning, getting involved with the industry, working with your local city if they have these innovation fairs, participate, volunteer.
Again, I think embracing sharing is going to be a big part of it, right? Again, we really see that as a solution to make these cities livable, better, safer. So just starting to do different things such as car sharing, it's not as intimidating as you think it is, and it's a way for you to really just see how the technology works because this is going to happen. This is definitely happening right now for us.
Satya?
Yeah, on the question about the intimidation for senior citizens, I think from a Spectrum perspective, I can speak to we offer a internet assist program for senior citizens, which is a lower cost broadband service. We also provide grants for nonprofits for digital literacy in each of the individual markets. We spend over $1 million a year on that across our entire markets where we serve. So that's one way to take advantage of it. And generally around opportunity in the space, as I think as Deborah mentioned, look at our websites, companies' websites, careers.spectrum.com, jobs.spectrum.com, or you can put those words in front of any of the companies.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're looking for talent. And also the flip side on smart cities is, I think to another question, a lot of smart city opportunities come from the cities, right? We have to be invited there to say, talk to me about technology. We have the technology, we have the capability. If the city invites us in, to partner with them to look at these services, that's going to generate opportunity locally. And that's one of the beauty with smart cities is it's a service for the local community that's customized for that service and that is owned and run by that city as well. So it provides a lot of opportunity locally from that perspective.
So, I think the bottom line is that we're hearing it, that we do not have to be afraid. It's happening, it's here. Especially around the opportunities that they're seeking from the different company representatives that have been here. You've heard it here first, and it's not just these companies, it's just a whole host of companies. We're so excited when Congresswoman Clark, along with her co-chair, introduced the Smart City Caucus. We were very excited at the German Marshall Fund when Congresswoman came with us to Europe because, as she said to you, Europe is ahead of the game and America is catching up. But, we're very competitive in America and we will catch up and we will surpass. The thing that I think has been a theme has been about the collection of all of this data. Everybody is concerned, and you cannot understand anybody more concerned than Europeans. And when you start talking about the collection from smart cities, one of the reasons of the delegation that the Congresswoman was on was around issues that she talked with her counterparts around privacy, data protection, encryption, and of course we did not talk about AI, but that's a conversation for another time. But we see that the mayors are in the room, or they're coming in, and you all had a lot of questions about how do you get in the game. And so I think that this second panel that's going to come up is going to be very enlightening. You heard the industry representatives talk about the fact that being proactive and going to your communities, going to your legislators, going to your cities, are going to, and the elected officials to ask them not only about what's happening around smart cities, but how can you be included in that? Because as we know, we're already included. And with that, we want to thank our panelists. Give them a round of applause. Deborah, Honeywell, Spectrum, and Iman from General Motors. And we want to bring Crystal up to introduce our next panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congresswoman Clark. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, photo.
Can we get the Congresswoman in as well?
Yeah. You want to do it right here? You want to do it right here? She want to do a quick picture. Quick picture. Put her in the center.
All right. We're going to put her in the center.
Oh, in the center?
Yeah, put you in the center.
Thank you so much, guys.
It's a great conversation.
Yes, it is.
Here's the man right here. Oh, two. Thank you.
Thank you. That
Thank you.
digital literacy is so important.
A huge part of it.
Excellent job.
It's very critical.
I'm so scared. It's like, they're talking to me. They're doing these things to me. I'm like, Daddy, please. He's 80, so.
All right, welcome to those that have just joined us. And for those of you who are planning to leave, please feel free to do so. And those of you who are joining, there's some seats in the middle row here as well as on the side here. Okay, so that was an excellent conversation. Thank you, Rita Jo Lewis. That was a wonderful dialogue that you all put forth. And thank you to each of the panelists. So next up, we have moderating this second panel is Stephanie Mash Sykes. She's the Executive Director and General Counsel of the African American Mayors Association, which is the only organization exclusively representing African American mayors on behalf of United States citizens. So you all join me in welcoming Stephanie Mash Sykes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm actually not moderating the next session, but I just wanted to give some remarks on behalf of the African American Mayors Association, our Board of Trustees, our dynamic president, Mayor Oliver Gilbert, who you'll hear from momentarily. I'm the Executive Director and General Counsel of this fabulous organization that launched in 2014 to represent the voice of Black mayors across the country. There are over 400 Black mayors of all city sizes that represent a diverse regions, diverse constituencies.
This whole race towards 5G, but I also know that we've been left out of the economic opportunities that are presenting themselves. You know, today, all of us got these smartphones, and so today, I can go and change the heat of my house, look and see who's walking around it. You all know this. And these young people, and there are young businesses out there, and there are businesses out there that have capacity and capability. Who's developing the next app? And how are we supporting that application process? I wanted to give a shout out to Afra Vance White, who's sitting over here, who is our Director of External Affairs. She always has to say that for me. And the reason I'm doing that is because what Afra does is go out and create opportunities for young people to engage in business opportunities. We're doing a Team Biz Challenge. Now, in that Team Biz Challenge is a 16-year-old who says that he's already discovered a better way to brush our teeth now, and it's using technology. So what we did was we created an investment fund. If you're a 14-year-old, where do you think you're going to get an investment from? If you're a 16-year-old, where are you going to get an investment fund from? And those are the kinds of things that we got to think about if we're talking about how we become more inclusive, how do we become more diverse, how do we make sure that we're sharing in this economic boom that's about to present itself. Now, Marianne can tell you how to do that. Now, she doesn't want to stand up here and pat herself on the back and say, you know what, I know what you cities should be doing. So what I said to Marianne when she walked out the door, I'll be the first city to contract with you, because I believe that you have something to share. We ought to be looking at that from the Black mayor's perspective, but urban cities and small cities and big cities around this country, to let that kind of knowledge go away and out the door makes no sense. She knows how to connect with companies and corporations, as we have. You know, when I came into Baltimore, and you all know we're under a consent decree, and what the consent decree said to us was that we had, first of all, our police department was lacking in technology. In 1997, they started putting computers in police cars in Prince George's County, Montgomery County, Anne Arundel County, every city, every county, except for Baltimore. Does that make sense? And then you want to call us the most dangerous city in America? Are you serious? So here's the first thing I did. Went and got the money, put the computers in the police cars in our city. And when you talk about lighting in our city, you know, the first thing I said was, gee, this city is dark. So I partnered with our local gas and electric company and said, I need you to change all 76,000 lights out and put LED lights up that shine not just on the street, but on the sidewalk so people can walk throughout our neighborhoods and communities. It's simple, but it's reality. You know, the technology in our housing authority, our Section 8 housing. You know what our housing, I got this young lady, I just think she's one of the best things in America, and so I'm not going to share her name with you all, because y'all been running through the city trying to grab her, yes, because she's smart. And so what she did, because they'll be writing about her at some point, what she did was, she said, first of all, she said, everybody who, because I separated housing authority, and you know in most cities this is already done. 40 years ago, they put together Housing and Community Development and the Housing Authority in Baltimore. They made it one. So you know what that meant, Congresswoman, in terms of federal dollars. You come in and you want to know why cities, and I'll never forget with Freddie Gray, people said, you know, saw Baltimore and said, oh my God, did Freddie Gray, the riots do that? No. No, it didn't. Neighborhoods and communities have been neglected for decades, underinvested in. You know, the words that I shared when I was walking through a neighborhood went viral. Million people watched me say, you know, I smell the rats. It's crazy. But whatever, and I use some other language. But the reality is that it's true. And so we have a responsibility to change that. And so when we come into these cities, and especially cities such as myself, where underinvestment has taken place for decades. And so what she did, she said to, and so I split HABC from HCD. She runs the federal side so she can get the federal dollars. We are one of the promised neighborhoods. We got one of the $6 billion grants in the country, and that will bring about $800 million that will transform neighborhoods and communities, including with technology. What she did was provide laptops to all the residents in public housing with 2 years of free technology so we can begin to bring, you know, of course, when you help the least, you help all of us. So you have to invest across the board. And so that's part of what we're doing. I hired from Intel a gentleman to look at our technology platform. We have the first IT platform technology plan to transform cities on the internet. When Google came to meet with us, they said, we've never seen this before. So I know how much it costs to transform the city. I can tell you what our needs are. I can tell you where the lack of connectivity are in our city. But again, I also am concerned about the opportunities that will prevail as a result of us connecting across the board. Those young people's ability to create, those businesses, and let's not forget the people who are already in business, you all, they have capacity and capability too. Because oftentimes when we think about, you know, inclusion, we always talk about the millenniums and we talk about the young people and the future and all of that kind of stuff, but this is happening now.
Well,
it's happening now.
You're proving that point that it's happening now, and we are seeing the results. We're not just seeing it here in the metropolitan area, we're seeing it across the country. Madam Mayor, let's give her a hand clap for that, and all the mayors on the station. I'm gonna have 2 more questions that I wanna make sure that we get in. And one is very important for the Congresswoman to make sure we segment for a minute African Americans in this conversation. Mayor Pugh, you've already talked about how many great people you've hired to actually tackle the work. So you're going after talent acquisition, key. I'm going to turn to the other mayors on the, Mayor Gilbert, can you talk about, like, how are you going at this and keeping African Americans in mind? And I know that our cities are made up of all types of people in color, but speak specifically on African Americans for a minute when it comes to smart cities.
Well, with regard to city hiring, well, we don't
Not
we don't
hiring,
use-
just in general, how do we not get left behind as a resident, as a,
Well, no, I have something.
okay.
I was just picking my words very carefully. Yeah, we don't.
You're
we
in
don't.
D.C., you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, no, technology. I'm on Facebook. We're everywhere. Yeah. Yeah.
I forgot I was dealing with the mayor of Miami.
No. Listen, we don't use race as an indicator, but I will say that my city manager, both the assistant city managers, and about 80% of my staff are all African American. It just, I don't know, it just happened that way. They were most qualified, and they understood a vision. And so as we send them out, for instance, one of the things that she mentioned, light. It is truly amazing how some of the issues that exist in black communities exist in all black communities. Because one of the things we're doing is taking over our lighting districts. The county actually controls the lighting districts in our city.
And diverse demographics within their city. Thank you to Congresswoman Clark for inviting us to be a partner on this important discussion. And thank you to her excellent team, LaDavia and Charlene, who've been excellent in getting us informed. And I would also just like to note that our organization has been at the forefront of discussing smart cities and innovation since our launch. Mayors work hand in hand with our partners to ensure that our communities have access to next generation technologies and to also make sure these technologies are inclusive and equitable. Innovation begins at home, so we are so excited to have our members represented on the next panel, and we look forward to their insights and best practices. So thank you again to the Congresswoman, thank you again to her team, and I look forward to an important discussion.
All right, so the actual moderator is Tammy Buckner, who is joining us. She currently serves as the head of federal affairs for Waste Management, which is a global company that provides industry-leading disposal and recycling solutions for business and residences. Tammy Buckner also has an extensive background in smart cities, and she'll be leading today's conversation. Welcome, Tammy Buckner.
Well, if you don't know by now, this is probably the best room to be in at the Convention Center because of one and almost a half of one reason, and that is because of Congresswoman Clark and also because of the amazing woman that just moderated the last panel, Rita Lewis, two amazing women, amazing panels. We're here today because of Congresswoman Clark. From New York City, and I would not even have this privilege without her. I'm a lobbyist of 20 years. I worked for Coca-Cola and started my career with DuPont Company, so I have been doing work around this town for a long time. It only got happier and easier and of a privilege when people like Yvette Clarke was elected. So I am honored to be here because of her, and it's just so happened we're talking about smart cities because she's the smart woman bringing these conversations to the table. I'm going to introduce the mayors one by one, and I'm going to introduce them in the order of importance to me. So just pardon me, Congresswoman, because it's a reason, and they don't even know me that well. But Mayor Oliver Gilbert, I want to bring to the stage first. He does not know this, but I am from Miami, Florida, and I know he is bringing the sunshine today, and not just because of his city of Miami Gardens, because of the fact that he went to FAMU, because he was an assistant attorney general, because he went to University of Miami, because he was a city councilman. Can I go on? He is the president of the African American Mayor's Association, and they have received sunshine because of him being the leader. Mayor, I welcome you to the podium.
Thank you.
My hometown of Florida. Next, I want to introduce Mr. Mayor of all times, Mayor Eugene Grant. Why is he the Mr. Mayor of all times? Is that because it is not just 5 minutes away from where we're sitting? It's because I think he made smart cities smart. Someone said that. I'm going to change that around a little bit. I think he made small cities smart, and you're going to hear about that today. He's an amazing mayor. I live in Upper Marlboro with my family, twins, and a husband who I wish was here to shake your hand, because I think you're the mayor of all of Prince George's County, and I think we're going to have a great executive director, but you have been a flagship for the county, and I welcome you to the podium. She's last because I have a lot to say. And that is because Mayor Hugh, let me just start off this way. Wow, it's a lot to say. Did you know she was an entrepreneur? Did you know she was a banker? Did you know that she was a developer? Did you know that she was the dean of Strayer Business University? Did you know that she wrote for Baltimore Sun as a special editor? Did you know that she wrote children's books? And then in her part-time work, she ran for mayor. Before all of that, she held from the state house, not just from the delegate side, the House side, but she was a senator. She was a leader within the NBCSL. She's a leader within the U.S. Conference of Mayors, just like the mayors here on the stage. But when she walks into the room, she has presence. I'm going to pause for a minute so she can get to the stage, and I welcome you, Mayor Hugh. I know the Congresswoman wanted me to start with a few questions because there's some things that she said that she didn't want us to come here on this stage and just have a conversation. She wanted us to pull things out of you, and she wanted us to have a real conversation. She's here in Washington, but one thing about our Congresswoman from New York is that she is all city. So if anybody knows her here in Washington, this is a local woman, hence why she's having this conversation today. So I'm going to start off, because I'm going to go by, because I had the mic, by the fact that I'm going to go by the same order, if you don't mind. From my great mayor from Miami Gardens, I'm going to start off by allowing you to talk about a couple of things. And that's one, you're the president of the African American Mayors Association. We really want to know what the African American mayors are doing when it comes to smart cities. Before you answer that question, Mr. Mayor, I really want you to broadcast, celebrate, and champion all the great work that you're doing in Miami Gardens. So can we start there with smart cities and then go into African American mayors, what they're doing? Because you're doing a great job in Miami Gardens, and I think they should hear it.
Well, listen, thank you very much. Congresswoman, thank you. I don't know if you remember this, but when I was sworn in, we danced at the swearing in. She's a great dancer, y'all. Now, if you missed our conference, we party like African-American mayors. So it's, we had Trick Daddy and everything. So y'all, I'm just joking. Now, I'm from Miami Gardens, so it's my hometown. And if you don't know where we are the home of the Miami Dolphins. Super Bowl 2020 they don't play it on the beach. I know what the picture is, but it's actually, they play it in Miami Gardens. And Super Bowl, Jazz in the Gardens. And I like to describe us as the black people in Miami-Dade County. Because we're the largest predominantly black city in the state of Florida. And so it's no coincidence that, we're very active in the African American Mayors Association. I'm only the second mayor of my city. And so we look at smart cities from a couple of different perspectives, from our operations, but then also about how we encourage imagination in our kids. Because from our perspective, we're building something, but what we're building is really nothing if we don't prepare people to actually build upon it. And so we do that on our park system by, now we're still, I guess we invested $60 million in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, recording studios, television production area, all to be placed on public parks for kids to get exposure to those things. What we found is in the urban core, we don't expose kids to those things too often. And so we would ask the question, why do kids just want to be rappers and football players? Because they see rap and football. But if you show them STEM and you show them robotics and you show them coding, you teach those things when they're at tender ages, what you'll find is you encourage children to imagine bigger things. In the same bond, we did something else. What we said was, we looked at the cost of running a city. And the cost of running a city was by and large a human cost. We paid employees a lot of money in some instances, not enough in others, but our highest paid employees were police officers. And so we said, how can we use technology to actually, going forward, decrease the amount of money we will have to spend on law enforcement, at the same time, making the city safer. And what we did was invest in technology. We invested in cameras to go up, and people hated cameras for red light cameras, but these aren't red light cameras, these are crime suppression cameras. We invested in license plate readers, because when you're driving through with a warrant, we want to be able to, we don't want an officer to actually have to run your tag, we want it to be run automatically. We invested in shot spotters, so if you pick up a gun and you shoot it, you have to understand those cameras and those license plate readers that are mobile, they will turn automatically to the area of where the gunshot was fired, because we want to try to catch you quickly. So those are some of the things that we're doing. We're also working with private companies, and I missed a lot of the private companies. I don't know if any of them talked about it, but whether it be from how you monitor and use water, technology is important. Not just in city facilities, but for our residents, how you collect business tax receipts, occupational licenses. That's important. How you monitor and catch people who are supposed to be paying stuff, but they don't. All of those things that can help you make city government more efficient. And you bring that money in, and then you put that money into kids and seniors. You put that money into programming that actually isn't city programming, but community building. Because ultimately the purpose of cities are to exist, well, a Greek a long time ago said the purpose of cities, the city-state came into existence to preserve life. What that means is we can do things together that we can't do individually. We pull our resources together, and we can help those kids and those seniors. We can make sure that every child has a real shot at what we believe to be an evolving and all-encompassing American dream. So we try to get efficient for that and for them. And hopefully we're doing it in a smart way. We'll see. We'll figure it out. Thank you all.
What about the African American Mayors Association?
It's the same, so what I think is sometimes, let me talk about what African American Mayors Association is, because somebody said that we're the mayors of black people. No, we're the mayors of all people. The idea that a black man or woman can only be a mayor of a city that's black, that time has passed. Its time has passed for mayors, it's passed for states, and it's passed for the country. We're not the mayors of a particular person, we're the mayors of a perspective. And the perspective is the regular stuff that everybody wants. You want good schools for your kids, you want safety, you want efficiencies, you want health care, you want education, you want these things. That's what we actually stand for. And so we have an agenda that kind of mirrors the needs that we see in the greater American public. But we're different. We have big cities like Baltimore, we have small cities and medium-sized cities, and so we attack it in different ways. And so you'll find, in Augusta, Hardy Davis is doing some things. I said Augusta, but I always mess it up. It's not Augusta. It is Augusta?
Yes,
It's where the golf course is, right?
Yeah,
the Masters.
Yeah, Mayor Hardy.
The
Mayor
Masters.
Hardy of Augusta.
Yeah, so he's the mayor of the Masters. I'm the mayor of the Super Bowl. We got to think. It's some of the things that he's doing with regard to making city government more efficient. But then in Columbia, it's everything that the president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and probably the best mayor in America from my perspective, Steve Benjamin, is doing with regard to law enforcement and how he reduced violent crime over a long time, using some of the same strategies that we're bringing to Miami Gardens right now. So it kind of runs the gambit, because we aren't a mayor of a color. We're a mayor of a whole bunch of different types of problems in a whole bunch of different types of places, all trying to make technology work for us. So
I'm glad you mentioned Mayor Hardy because he is doing great work
Yeah.
in Augusta, Georgia. I'm going to move on. Congresswoman Clark mentioned and to her staff and others her desire to always look at a city as a city, whether it's small or big. So this is a good pivot. And Mayor Grant, I want to share with you that we believe, at least here, because of Congresswoman Clark, is because of the fact that you are in a small city. It's a lot of small cities, but you make small cities smart. And that is something big to say, and that's coming from her, and that's coming from many people. And I just wanted you to spend some time talking about the amazing work that you've been doing with IBM, and to talk about Seat Pleasant. And it's just a rock throw away from where we're sitting right now, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Moderator Buckner. Let me first thank the Congresswoman for your work that you're doing in the Smart City space, and particularly for the creation of the Congressional Smart Cities Caucus that you are co-chairing. And I see one of my friends, Steny Hoyer, walking in now. Thank him for joining us in this discussion as well. But it is very clear to us, and it's very important, that in this discussion, that small cities are not left out. Of the over 19,000 cities in the United States, 80% of our cities have populations of 10,000 or less. 60% of them have populations of 5,000 or less, which we represent. And so small cities must not be left out of the discussion. And I am honored to sit on this stage with both of my colleagues, but in particularly the Mayor of Baltimore, who represents the largest city in our state, and the great work in which she is doing and work she is leading in our state of Maryland. I thank her so very much for what she's doing. But as it relates to small cities, which Seat Pleasant, a smart city of excellence, represents, we have been a very loud voice in this space in discussing smart cities and bringing those technologies to the forefront of our communities. When we started this journey and we started talking about smart cities about 5 years ago, we really just didn't know what smart cities was, to be honest with you. And to some degree, we probably still don't know what smart cities is, because it's an ever evolving piece that is going on in our society. But as a mayor, it is my responsibility to ensure that we deliver services. And we deliver those services effectively and efficiently. We don't have the kind of resources as some municipalities may have that have large budgets. So therefore, we have to take the budgets that we have and be good stewards over the budgets of the citizens of our community. As we move forward, we realized that it was important to bring together an eclectic group of individuals, our residents, IoT professionals, big companies such as your telecom companies, and in our case, we were able to bring IBM to the table and begin our $30 million journey in transforming our city into a smart city. And as a result of that, we have been able to travel around the world to share our story, just coming back Monday evening from China and participating in a conference in Qingdao and showing and demonstrating what we're doing. While there are individuals who are okay. I said we were loud.
Yeah. I thought you said closer.
And so as we are traveling and having conversations, while the United States may be behind in many areas, we have the ability to catch up, and not only have the ability to catch up, we also have the ability to overcome. The United States is a great country. We have great people. We have great mayors, as you have seeing seated here, and we have great imagination. We have a great resolve to not be left behind and to ensure that we deliver the best for our residents. What we have created in our city is an opportunity for every resident of our city to be the mayor. It is not about Eugene W. Grant being the mayor, but it is about putting democracy back into democracy. We believe that smart cities is the new social justice platform that brings about equity and inclusion if it is managed and led right. You have to have right leadership in your city to ensure that they are lobbying for the best interest of their residents, to bring those resources into their communities and use those resources for the benefit of the people whom we are elected to serve. It must be a citizen-centric approach. Everything that we do must be about the citizen. It must not be about the elected officials. It must not be about special interest groups. It must be about the people who are the stakeholders, who are the people who pay the bills for us to be able to do the things that we do. We believe that Smart Cities is the platform that allows us to be able to do that. We want to be efficient. We want to be effective. So as data is coming in, there's data analytics. We utilize that data so that we can do descriptive analytics. Let's describe what the challenges are that are happening in our communities. Then we move from descriptive analytics to we go to prescriptive analytics. Let's come up with the solutions on how we solve those problems. And then we move to the next level, which is predictive analytics. How we can predict into the future those problems or those challenges that might confront us in the future. And we are the only small smart city in the United States that is now using IBM's Watson, so their artificial intelligence is being used in our city so that our citizens can have 24-hour access to its government to be able to ask the questions that they need to ask and be able to get the answers that they need to address their day-to-day issues and their problems. I think I'll stop right there, that way you can get on, because I'll get excited. Thank you.
You're really excited.
This is a great moment. I would have let you keep going. I think we're all energized now. You're going to get further energized. And that is because, I mean, Maryland has a lot to say, whether it's small or big, right? And we're going to go and talk to another mayor who have a larger city. Before we go to the mayor of Baltimore, I want to just pause for just a little point of, again, just being able to control the mic. You can tell I don't have a lot to say at my house, right? Because I have twins and they control everything. But now since I can talk, I can feel like I'm kind of in control, right? And I want to just take a moment to just say, Mayor, that you're joined and we're about to put in a sandwich here. You're the bread, and the other part of the bread is a congressman of great love for the mayors here. That's why he's in the room today. And he is going to be excited, the fact that he's going to be able to address you. I'm going to turn it over to our leader. A lot of us call him our leader in Maryland because I live in Maryland. A lot of the lobbyists here call him our leader because he makes everyone successful, even if he doesn't agree with us. And nothing else, he is supportive and a friend of Congresswoman Yvette Clarke. And I'm going to pause right here and just have Mr. Steny Hoyer come to the stage today and say hello to you.
Well, thank you very much, Tammy. I am so pleased to be here. You know, I'm from Maryland. Now, where do you think I was born?
Jersey.
Where? I was born in Harlem.
Harlem.
I was born in Harlem, about 104th Street, just at the south side of Harlem on 5th Avenue in New York City. Charlie Rangel used to say that. Steny Hoyer, born in my district. And Yvette Clarke and I are very, very dear friends, and Yvette Clarke is one of the great members of the Congress of the United States. She's on what arguably is the most important committee in terms of jurisdiction in the Congress, the most sought-after committee, and only the best members get on that committee. She's on the Energy and Commerce Committee that really has about 40% of the authorizing legislation in that one committee. So she is a very powerful, effective, and consequential member of the Congress of the United States. Yvette, thank you for all you do. Now, I was born in Harlem, but I grew up in District Heights, which is just a stone's throw from the Rapper. I have known Mayor Grant for probably 30 years, you think? Yes. We've known each other. I want to tell you, 30 years ago, he was as good as he is now. Now, he's gotten better, So I don't want anybody to say, oh, well, he hadn't grown, he hadn't learned. I mean, obviously he has. He's got Watson on the job. But he is an extraordinary mayor. And the lady to his left, I won't tell you how long I've known her, but it's, I think maybe a little longer than you, Grant.
Okay.
She was 4. And I love this mayor. Now, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure I really know you, so that I can't say something about you, but let me say this. I was elected to the Maryland State Senate in 1966. I was 5 months out of law school. I needed something to do. So I ran for the Senate and was elected. And I've been 12 years in the Senate, and I'm now in my 38th year in the Congress of the United States. You don't have to be much of a mathematician to know that's just about half a century. And how many mayors do we have in the room? Let me say, as a state legislator, as a national legislator, I believe if you have half a brain as a legislator, you can avoid 100% responsibility. I want you to calculate that. You can blame the Congress. I mean, you can blame your Republicans, or you can blame the Democrats, you can blame the president. If you're in the state legislature, you can blame the governor, you can blame the other senators, the other legislators. If you're a mayor, you can't avoid any responsibility.
Nothing.
I think being mayor of a city is the hardest political job in America, and maybe anywhere in the world. Because it's not rhetoric at that point in time, it's people who get you on the phone or see you on the corner or in the store. You're there. They can touch you and feel you and talk to you and hear you. And unfortunately, the federal policies vis-a-vis our cities have not been supportive enough. Catherine, say amen.
Amen.
Why? Because when I was elected state legislator, I was elected from Prince George's County, where Mayor Grant and I grew up and live. I don't live there now. I live in one of the rural counties, but Prince George's County is the biggest part of my district. The good news is Grant doesn't live in my district, because I'd be very worried. I want you to know that. He is very, very good. The fact of the matter is, when I was a senator from Prince George County, which was a sort of semi-rural county at that point in time, it was a long time ago, I was a big supporter of Baltimore City. Why? Because I knew that Baltimore was the heart of our state. And if Baltimore was healthy, we would be healthy. And very frankly, Prince George County was becoming an urban county and had a lot in common. And now, Prince George's County and Baltimore City are one, really, in so many policies. So I believe that this panel is one of the most important we have during this, what I call, best legislative conferences of the year by the CB Foundation, by the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. We have so many people here from so many diverse parts of our country and diverse challenges. So I thank you for being here. I thank the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation for sponsoring every year this forum. It is, I think, one of the greatest production of consequential policies that will make our country better. Our country is great, but John Kennedy said we can make it greater. And that's what this forum is about. That's what this weekend is about. That's what you're about. And I am so proud to be here with you as someone who wants to make their country better. I quoted in a, I thought you're in the wrong panel. There's the hip-hop panel is over there. And Annie Maxine is having one herself over there. But the fact of the matter is we need to communicate to our people the needs that will make their communities better and them better. You know, I tell people I'm for everybody having access to affordable health care. And I say, look, I've got some grandchildren, and they're going to be in school. And they're going to have somebody in front of them, somebody to their left, somebody to their right, and somebody behind them. And I want all those 4 children around my grandchild healthy. Because if they're not healthy, I won't be healthy. If the cities aren't healthy, the suburbs won't be healthy. If the suburbs aren't healthy, the rural communities won't be healthy. We are in this together. We need to care about one another, lift one another up. Thank you very much, Yvette Clarke, for leading this forum. Mr. Mayors and Madam Mayor, thank you very much for the leadership that you have shown in one of the toughest jobs we have in America. God bless you, and God bless all of you. Thank you very much.
And in case you were not informed, Steny Hoyer is currently the minority whip of the House of Representatives, soon to be majority.
You know, as in a rap, I don't know how many of you know Silent Toe. Watch me whip. Watch me nay-nay. Huh? I'm not going to nay-nay for you.
Don't do it. Wait, hold on. Maryland is off the chain. I like this Maryland thing. Yeah, this is.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you so much for making sure that you mentioned Prince George's County. That is the county, and we have great mayors there. So thank you, Mayor, for saying, I'm sorry, Congressman, for saying that. The best is, sorry, gentlemen, the best is for last. And that is because she is really going to show us what first means. I was about to call him by his first name. The congressman, our majority whip, mentioned about 4 kids surrounding his grandchildren. Congresswoman, I don't know if you remember meeting my twins, and you mentioned or love on all kids and all children. And all children should be smart and have access, not just healthy, but have access. And I wanted just to bring us back there because that's what a smart city is. Not the one kid, not the other kid, but everyone has access to technology. They're living in smart cities. They're transforming the world. And it's a great, great way to parlay into our next presenter and our speaker, and that is Mayor Pugh, because she's been the first in doing that. And I want to just ask you a question, Madam Mayor, and you've been the first at doing a lot of things. You've been tackling a lot of issues, and you come into a situation where there's good or bad or happy, and you make sure the happy remains and becomes happier, and you look at a problem and you're saying like how I'm going to resolve it. And not just that, Mayor, you have transformed just the city alone by becoming the first mayor in the city of Baltimore to come up with a transformation plan around digital. And I just want to spend some time on that because it is a hallmark for smart cities. I'll turn it over to you.
So first, let me just say thank you all for taking time out of your schedules to be with us. But I'm hoping that everyone got a copy of this, the Wall Street Journal. If you haven't read it, it came out on Thursday, September the 13th, 5G technology. Everybody should read this. We are in a race to become the first country as it relates to 5G deployment, but it is in fact a race, and we're in it. And we're not last, we're in it. But the reality is, and I think all of the things that have been said by both mayors on both sides are really reality. You know, we want to make sure that it's available to all. We want to make sure that we're doing the things that are right by every citizen. But I want to come back by this by another perspective, and that is that 5G, which now 4G, which allows us to reach something like 2,000 different deployments in an area. When 5G comes along, it'll be 1 million. That's how much faster we'll be allowed to go. And the question for all of us is that what does this mean in terms of the growth, equity, equality, and inclusion of African Americans and other minorities in the opportunities that will present themselves as a result of it. You know, it's one thing to make it available, but it's another thing to be included in the economic opportunity that will result. You know, when we think about our young people, our children, and getting them prepared for 5G and the opportunities and opening up our education institutions, the reality is that we're not talking about 5 years from now, we're not talking about 10 years from now, we're talking about now. So what are we doing in our cities, our country, our states to make sure that we're equalizing those opportunities? And so I wanted to put a plug in for one of my great sheroes, and that's Mian Claiborne. Mian was an FCC commissioner, And I'm going to say this for our black mayors, but I'm also going to say it for all of our cities in this country. If you're not having a conversation with Mian about how we make sure that we're creating business opportunities and presenting equity opportunities for African Americans, we're missing the boat. That is reality, because businesses are being created, opportunities are being provided, and we're going to miss the boat if we don't get on board. So we should, I've served as an FCC advisor, so I know where we are in terms of.
And it's like 20 lighting districts, and so we have a vote at the end of, I guess, November to take over the lighting districts, because as I walk through the streets at night, they're too dark. But those cameras that we're putting up, we're going to put some of those cameras in lights, so that I don't have to over-police an area to actually provide safety for an area. Look, when we look at technology, technology is a really big word. Some people can spell it, some people can't. But really what it means is we're going to find a way to do something easier, better, and cheaper. How can we do that? So we do that first by imagining the situation that we want to exist, and then if we have the ability to bring them in-house doing it, but if not, you know, find a way to go out and find people. And one of the things that we're doing right now is we started investing in co-working spaces and trying to attract, you know, people who had a greater interest in technology. What we found is our land use wasn't even set up for that. It wasn't set up to allow different people to do different things in the same space. And so what we did, we started changing the land use. You build cities mechanisms and restrictions and never be limited by what is. Like I have this thing where I go to schools and talk to all our kids, and I wear mismatched socks all the time. It's my thing. I just don't want to spend any time matching my socks. It takes too long. The dryer and the washing machine, they're not my friend. I mean, but they always ask me why, and I say, well, what are socks supposed to do? They're supposed to keep your feet warm. Okay, then why do you have to match? So my point is that, you know, we're governed by the laws of physics. Everything else is kind of a social construct. So we imagine government a different way, and we just do it. Just do it. And so we're doing that with regard to land use to try to incorporate people and bring them in. We're doing that in regard to technology on the parks with regard to the lights. A light doesn't just have to be a light. A light can be a policeman. A light doesn't have to be a light. A light can be a way to have economic development. Because you know what happens when you brighten streets and you make them walkable? Businesses open.
Mayor
and that's
Grant,
not me. That's
I'm
kind of the science of it. So thank you.
No, perfect. Mayor Grant, I'm going to turn to you and try to pivot to a different conversation with the same theory in mind, but from a resident's point of view, and not in-house, dealing with it as a staff perspective, which we heard around talent, land use, all the problems that you're dealing with, or not even problems, great challenges that you're loving to solve. But as a resident, how is a resident to feel in a smart city? How is a resident to feel?
Well, residents need to feel as though the government serves them. That is the primary reason why we exist, is that we, the people, in order to form a more perfect union. We are here to form a more perfect union in our communities, to provide services. It's basic, let's not make it complicated. The people pay taxes. In return, they want something for the money that they put up. And so our citizens feel as though that they're getting services that are better, faster, and more personalized. Now, some of the reasons that they feel that way is because their mayor, myself, am pro-black, right? And I make no apologies about being pro-black. And in doing that, I know that there is talent within the African American community. So when we had this deal with IBM and signed it in Silicon Valley, they appointed individuals to help to design our infrastructure for our services. All right? And so when we did that and we built the system, I looked at the talent that helped build it was a young black man. And he's sitting right over there. Stand up, Muhammad. Stand up. Now he's 30 years old. I stole him from IBM. Now it's costing me a lot of money to pay him. But there's talent in our community, right? Success runs in our race. And when we acknowledge that and see that, then we bring that talent in and our residents are served thereby. Because as a young person, he has something to prove. Then we kept continuing to moving and we said, well, economic development is important to us. From the perspective of millennial engagement and getting our millennials coming and moving into our city and they having the desire to have services. So then we went to Howard University. And so we said, that young man, raise your hand, young man. He's the Director of Economic Development. Again, all right? Talking about satisfying citizens, but we don't just stay there in just in the male category. Stephanie, your organization yesterday honored our city administrator. She's a more senior member of our government. She runs, it's a woman, a black woman, that runs the day-to-day operations of our city. Our residents are pleased with the services that are being delivered by them. But then we went to another young lady, raise your hand, young lady, who is in our media department, all right, providing services. So we brought a team of people here to show you how SMART actually works, how we tap into that talent in our community, right? The second thing that we did is we formed a partnership with Prince George's Community College. Prince George's Community College is now designing a Smart Cities accreditation certification. Why are we doing that? Because when you're bringing in these companies like Intel and Siemens Brothers and Johnson Controls, and they want to establish a presence in your community, the black community, I don't want them bringing talent from outside of my city into my city. I want to make certain that my residents have the training that they can get the jobs to put the IoTs in the city that serves our people.
I don't think you're gonna leave this panel thinking that the mayors, especially the African American mayors across the country, is behind the curve, catching up, and not in front. We heard from 3 diverse, very diverse mayors, different perspectives, but they have the passion and the passion to lead in a smart city. I'm going to close out. I'm going to start, of course, with where I was born in Miami, and I'm going to close out and allow the mayor just to say a few words, and I really want you to try to tie in the federal link. The Congresswoman is here, Steny Hoyer, the whip, who counts all the votes. He's the one that's putting great people in great committees. He's going to continue to hear us, but what's the link to federal and to you, and share whatever you want in your closing remarks, and thank you.
Thank you. We would love some money. You have not because you asked not. Yeah, we love some money. I'm just going to put that out there. You know, closed mouth don't get fed. We have a couple of other mayors here. Mayor Waterman from Pontiac, Michigan. Please give her a round of applause, you all. And Mayor Woods. I think I saw Mayor Woods around here somewhere. There you go. It really is a partnership with the federal government, and not so much lately. Not so much lately, but we kind of need you all to do things that we don't necessarily have the depth of resources to do. Now, having said that, and I appreciate, and I knew we need you all. If you don't do it, we will do it. You hear from great mayors. The reason I want to acknowledge the other mayors is because mayors across the country are doing extraordinary things with different styles and in different ways, but we're doing extraordinary things for our communities because we understand that as leaders, sometimes you even if it ain't being done by the people supposed to do it, you're standing in the gap. It's our job. So I answer questions about Social Security and Medicare and all of those things. And because I'm their mayor. I shop with them in stores. I go to parks with them. Yeah, I'm their mayor. We go to church together. So they can reach me, they can touch me, and they know that I'm going to care no matter what. If the federal government disappeared, they have mayors. And so I appreciate that, and I take that seriously. And our organization takes that seriously. Because we understand that we're going to be the only people who do it sometimes. And so I appreciate both these mayors that are here and all the mayors that are in the room. I appreciate all of y'all especially, but the Congresswoman for bringing us here to talk about smart cities. Because too often we're not actually having these conversations. We start talking about coding, 20 years after people start coding. We start talking about 5G when people on 9G in our community. No, I'm happy that we're talking about that stuff now. I know that it's one of the topics for the African American Leadership Summit, the mayors that we're having actually in Miami Gardens on October 18th and 19th. Stephanie told me to plug that. That you can go to
October
18th and 19th in Miami Gardens. You can go to ourmayors.org to register. She put that all in the phone. See, technology working for us right now. But it's that continued conversation, and just sitting here listening to both of them and what they're doing and how they're doing it, I am informed. I know you all were informed and you were blessed. And so this is a good step, but it's only a step. We got a journey. So let's just keep
Gilbert,
going.
you are that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and it's not just because of the other color gold. You are the gold in that rainbow for Miami and other mayors. So thank you for not just representing Miami Gardens, but African American mayors across the country.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn now to the gentleman to close out before we go to Mayor Hugh, and that is the mayor who makes small cities smart.
To answer your question, I think it's important that we support our organizations that are at the forefront of these conversations. One, obviously the African American Mayors Association, for which I am a member of, who is doing a great work in this. Each year they have a conference up in Philadelphia with Comcast and various other programs that they do. It's very important that we support those types of initiatives that are going on at that level. Then to the next point is, I think we cannot lose sight on Congresswoman Clark's work with the Smart Cities Caucus. It is extremely important that we work with the Congresswoman, we give her the support that she needs when she's having congressional hearings.
Can I stop you right there? The one thing that you can do as a mayor, because you're very powerful at doing this, you should not have a congressional member that's not a member. If you have a congressional member, no matter what, you should ask them to join the caucus. It's a new caucus. She's a pioneer in this. And if they join, Republican or Democrat, that's what's going to make it successful.
So we have contacted our congressman, for the record, Congressman Brown, and we have reached out to him and asked and encouraged him to be a vocal person on this effort. So yes, ma'am, we have done just that. But it is important that as citizens, as residents, that we become engaged in the dialogue to work with the Congresswoman. There are, Mayor Gilbert talked about, we would like to have money, but it just doesn't come as a result of us just saying. We have to actually lobby for it. We have to write letters. We have to show up. We have to be there. We have to let it be known. And we have to have data to support why we need these dollars and how it's going to help our constituents. We just can't just say we want money or any of those kinds of things, but we have to speak in an intelligent voice and a loud voice to ensure that we are not left behind in this digital divide that we see in this country. Thank you very much.
Mayor Pugh, you mentioned Mignon, and I just like how you mention her is how you operate. And you're always making plugs, and not plugs to promote someone, but plugs for access, because she is the most approachable individual here in Washington, D.C., right, Rita? I mean, you cannot not talk to Mignon. So if any mayor want access to free information, I'm not giving away her secret sauce, but she is the most approachable person, just like you, Madam Mayor, you are as well. I'm going to close out with you, and thank you again.
Thank you. I just want to remind you all that she's in the private sector now, so pay it when you hire her. Okay. And I'm serious. I want to also acknowledge two other individuals who are here. My head of government relations, Karen Stokes, and her deputy, Paul Trudeau. We have about 21 African Americans who hold major positions in Baltimore City. Let me just say this to you all. This is happening now, and so we have to be in it now. And when we talk about contracting, it's not just about minority contracting, it's about growing these companies so that they can be majority contractors. So let's make sure that when we open up and we see these opportunities, that we're sharing them across the board. There's expertise out there, and planning and being prepared is important. Congresswoman, I want to thank you, but I also want you to know that we've put our infrastructure proposal in already. In fact, I think we were one of the first cities to do that, as well as opportunity zones. You know, we should be prepared. We are prepared. Baltimore has gotten accepted. We put in 44 opportunity zones, 42 have been accepted. We have to be prepared. Part of being a leader is being prepared. Part of being a leader is sharing. Part of being a leader is helping to grow your communities across the board. I look forward to the opportunity to do so, and I thank you for the opportunity to share with you all today.
Mayor Pugh, Mayor Grant, and Mayor Gilbert.
That was absolutely wonderful, Tammy Buckner. Thank you for facilitating that energetic conversation. And I do want to take a moment to acknowledge, I'm not sure if we touched all the mayors that are in the room, but would you mind standing and just announcing yourself? Okay. I think there was a few more.
Mayor right here.
To Alder Gilbert and Commissioner, and to the Commissioner Felicia Robinson for their Mayor Waterman, Pontiac, Michigan, look forward to being at the Mayor's Roundtable in Baltimore.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Renee Dickinson, Downers, Virginia.
Awesome. Absolutely. Well, welcome to each and every one of you. We definitely appreciate your impactful work. So next I am bringing up Senator Kevin Parker from New York. Let's welcome the senator, please. Senator Kevin Parker was first elected to the New York State Senate in 2002. He's a lifelong resident of Brooklyn and currently represents the 21st Senatorial District.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Good. Again, we're at the part of the program now where everything's been said. Everybody just hasn't said it yet. And so that's my job. Again, I'm State Senator Kevin Parker. I represent the 21st District in Brooklyn, which is Flatbush and East Flatbush, Midwood, Ditmars Park, Windsor Terrace, and Park Slope. I am the Democratic whip in the New York State Senate, currently in the minority, going to the majority, similar to Steny Hoyer. And in fact, if you have not heard this already, they oftentimes refer to Steny Hoyer as the Kevin Parker of the United States Congress. But I'm also principally here as the ranker on energy and telecom. And so I think, we've heard on the city level, we've heard a lot on the federal level. Let me say that I represent the Congresswoman and have an opportunity to work alongside the best member of Congress in the entire United States. Please give her a round of applause, Yvette Duclark. And so I've known Yvette for a long time, and the Congresswoman has really understood and has always been on the cutting edge of both technology, but also on making sure that she's fighting for the things that are important in this community. What Smart Cities really is really about two things. The first is about equity, and the second is about how we pair technologies and how we pair the different types of technologies. And so just wanted to kind of quickly just talk about a couple of things that you've heard already. Now, first of all, if you ask 10 people in this room what is a smart city, you're going to get 15 different answers, right? Because there's not a lot of unanimity about what a smart city is. But when you look at a textbook definition, what you hear about is really about how we collect electronic data sensors and how we supply information, which is managed assets in a way that we haven't done so before. And you heard a sister ask the question about what's happening with the data. That's a really, really critical question, right? When we talk about, you heard someone else talk about the digital divide. Again, issues of equity. This is possibly our next digital divide. the first digital divide, we're on our second digital divide already. The first digital divide was around hardware, right? Then cell phones came along and that helped bridge the gap a little bit in terms of hardware. Then access to high-speed internet connections, which is our current, our current fight, right? And so in New York, and I'll be specifically talking about a New York kind of perspective and the state perspective, you'll see that, we do things in the city of New York through the Department of Technology called Link NYC. And in Link NYC, we try to deal with that issue in terms of providing free public high-speed connections. But the reality now in our community is that you can't even apply for a job unless you have a high-speed connection, right? And so let alone be involved in what's happening around issues of equity. So we need to start, as a community, start addressing the issues of equity, right? And so we had great presentations by Charter and Honeywell and folks that I work with all the time. And we have to start asking ourselves as community members, as state legislators, as activists, some important questions. Who's on the board of Honeywell? Who's on the board of Charter? How many of our folks are on there? Who the people doing procurement, right? And who's doing the diversity parts of those conversations? Who, as they start talking about putting up these small cells all over the city, right? Who's getting paid not just to put them up, but who they buying the technology from? They're not, Honeywell makes some of the boxes. Charter doesn't make small cell technology. So who's building those small cells? Are there Black and Latino contractors who are getting the contracts to do? These are the equity questions that we need to be involved in, right? And we talk about procurement diversity. Who are they procuring from, right? Particularly as it relates to this, because this is the way that this can go past us very, very quickly, right? Very quickly. The process around technology is two types of technology that are being paired. There's active technology and there's passive technology, right? And so when we talk about this level of, what is a smart city, there's things like smart meters, which is a passive technology, right? So one of the things that's happening if you live in an apartment building, right, Charlene, they're putting in all of these smart meters that are automatically measuring the amount of gas, the amount of electricity that you're using, right? And you don't even know that, right? They didn't even, most of the time, again, if you live in an apartment building, they even tell you that they did that, right? And they're doing it in many of our homes, again, without even letting you know. And so you don't need anybody to come in and read the meter anymore, right? And then you have active technologies. You heard Mayor Oliver Gilbert talk about technology that actually will turn on cameras when gunshots are heard, right? And point the cameras towards the light. Those are more active ideas. And again, there's a lot of applications for that. And so again, we have to understand the difference between the active and the passive. And so what's important about that is what that means in terms of privacy. And again, somebody asked a question about privacy. I don't know if anybody got an answer about what's happening with privacy. Nobody got a real answer about what's happening with all the data. So people are collecting your data, they're monetizing it, and then you getting it for profit. What is the give back to you? What's the give back to the community? What's the give back to our cities and our states as these companies are collecting our data and then using the data? I'm just asking the question, right? And I'm not so sure that we got those answers quite yet, but those are some of the answers that we need to be asking on the ground as we, in fact, start to deal with these issues. Lastly, I just want to make a point about as we talk about where this is happening is, and I know some folks talked about Europe. The United States is actually not so far behind, and we are catching up fairly quickly. In fact, 12 out of the top 50 cities in the world are actually considered smart cities, right? Including, of course, New York City, Boston, San Francisco, Chicago, Seattle, Washington, D.C., Columbus, Ohio, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Kansas City, Missouri, which you heard, Philadelphia, and Charlotte, North Carolina. And let me quickly just send out my personal prayers to the folks of both North Carolina and South Carolina as they go through this tough time with the hurricane, and particularly the town of my father, which is New Bern, North Carolina, which is being featured on, they're underwater right now. So I pray for my family there and all the people in New Bern, North Carolina right now. And so, like, even though this stuff, again, has to do with data, we really have to learn the questions, right? Because this is happening. So I'm making a point about how many cities are engaged in it because this is happening now. This is not something of the future. This is happening right this moment. The Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies has done a 5G Smart Cities report. You should certainly look at that. Everybody here should be in touch with their PSC, the Public Service Commission. Every state has something that looks like a PSC that maybe calls something different, but looks like that, and it has that formation in order to monitor and regulate utilities in everyone's state. You should be looking at their 5G reports. Almost all of them have done 5G reports and talking about where the opportunities are. And so as we get on board and talk about where jobs are, we need to be talking about equity relationships with these companies. We should be talking about procurement with these companies. We should be talking about board of advisory relationships, and so that we can, in fact, help guide this process, right? And it's important that we understand the process and that we're engaged in it fully. And so I'm looking forward to working with my congresswoman as well as the other members of the state legislature, as well as the city council and the mayor of my city, to in fact address these issues. Because as we start building up, it's important that we start answering these important questions around equity and around access and around privacy, because if we don't ask them, who's going to ask? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you to those of you who have maintained your seats for our final remarks, who will be provided by Assemblywoman Latrice Monique Walker, who was elected to the New York State Assembly in 2014. She's a native of Brownsville in Brooklyn, and she's a licensed attorney and has made a name for herself as a strong voice and attorney and advocate from the streets of Brownsville to the halls of justice. Welcome, Assemblywoman.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I dare say they saved the best for last. I get to have an interesting opportunity where I can show how the rubber meets the road in terms of the wonderful work that Congresswoman Clark has been doing. Her having this conference about smart cities is just not something that she's doing in rhetoric. But in fact, in her district, it's a community, the community of Brownsville, where I was born and raised in, is a community that is plagued by many, many issues, including that of many young people who are involved in the criminal justice system. There is a program called the Brownsville Community Justice Center, which deals with trying to turn around the lives of many young people. So there's a pilot program, it's called the Brownsville CoLab. It's a smart city initiative where it really utilizes the talent and the skill and the expertise that all of these young people have. And we've already heard the mayor say that our children already have everything that's inside of them in order to create the wave of our future. So there were some RFIs, that's the request for information, that came out to figure out, well, what are some of the initiatives that we can do? And we looked at Belmont Avenue, which was a community that had been a vibrant economic development vehicle within the neighborhood. But through many riots and different things that took place within Brooklyn and Brownsville, most of the stores left. It's about 90% empty at this point. It's dark, it's dank, no one wants to go there. So what we've done is, through this RFI, which became an RFP, where many MWBEs had an opportunity to explore some advances that may be able to be utilized. We have young people who have installed smart belly trash cans, where whenever the trash is already full, that it sort of alerts the city to let them know to come and pick up the trash within this particular trash can. There are seats and benches throughout the neighborhood on some of the blocks, which are sort of dead-end blocks, These seats are solar powered and folk can come by, charge their cell phones and any other devices that they may have. We've activated the streets through street lamps. Whenever folk are walking down the street and they detect that there's some movement there, street lights are automatically turned on. And so we're just trying to tap into the talent, tap into the opportunities for economic development, where we are changing the lives of so many young people, and not just that, but also the day-to-day existence of so many people who live and thrive and survive and work in Brownsville, Brooklyn. So I thank you so much for taking the time out to come to this particular workshop. You could have been anywhere, but clearly you recognize how important this is, how important STEM is to our young people, and really to recognize that we have to create the type of pipeline who's going to come up with all of these coding opportunities and the apps that will exist in years to come. So I've heard a number of different themes that kept repeating itself today. One being opportunities for economic development in a place where no one has necessarily cornered the market. So while there are still some entry points left for communities just like the ones that we come from, we really encourage you to go back and just, try this thing out. It has worked in other places. I'm sure it can work within your homes, your hometowns, your cities, your communities as well. Again, I am Assemblywoman Latrice Walker. I have Councilwoman Alika Samuel, who's also here, who represents Brownsville as well. Actually, we had, I think, the mayor of Sweden or Denmark that came to the Brownsville community to see our Brownsville collab and see how things are working in order to take it back there. So, Senator, to your point, the United States is doing a great job in terms of being innovative and having collabs, so much so that we're teaching other countries how to do the same thing. Of course, Congresswoman Clark represents us very well, and I also have my colleague, Assemblywoman Kimberly Jean-Pierre from Suffolk County. So she represents Wyandanch. We'll get it out there as well. God bless you. I'm Assemblywoman Latrice Walker. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman. We definitely appreciate your closing remarks, and thank you all for participating and attending today's critical conversations. And lastly, thank you, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, for spearheading these important conversations. And on a final note, I've been asked to let everyone know as you exit to kind of keep your voices down, as there are interviews taking place right outside the door. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of CBCF ALC.